That's great. Well, let's get rolling. So welcome everyone to the AI Salon Presents. My name's Kyle Shannon, and my crazy co-founder here is Leah Fasten.
Hello.
Hello. How are you,
crazy co-founder? How am I doing? I'm okay. I'm doing all right. I'm happy to be here at the salon, talking about improv and AI and things I love.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited. We've got Danny Kravitz speaking tonight on creativity, and so we're going to tee a lot of that stuff up. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, I have gone into a kind of deep philosophical space with AI in the past couple of weeks. VO3 did me in and sent me down a bunch of rabbit holes, and so I think I'm well. Let's do our housekeeping, talk about the salon and all that stuff, and then we'll open up the conversation, because maybe we can have a little discussion before Danny goes, because Danny's going to be talking about creativity and things like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that poster, that's me on the improv stage. That's me doing improv, where I'm like, oh, I am a butler in Scotland.
Yeah. Yes, and so welcome everyone. So this is the AI Salon. As most of you know, Leah and I started this crazy cohort the week after ChatGPT came out in December of 2022. I can't believe it's been 2.5 years, but it has. Absolutely crazy. And you know, one of the things that both Leah and I are very passionate about is creating a space where people who are trying to figure out what's going on with this AI stuff, you know, have a space to connect and share and teach and learn and lead and all that sort of stuff. And so that's the kind of genesis of the AI Salon. And you know, one of the things we talk about is the cycle of AI readiness. I want to dig into this. We're going to talk about values here in a second. But the philosophical hole I ran down actually came back to this illustration, this cycle. This feels increasingly right to me and increasingly important. But anyway, the whole idea with the salon is, you know, things are changing so fast with AI that, you know, where you start is play first, and then as you learn things in playing, mindfully create. You know, try to solve a problem, try to do something, try to express yourself, and then as you're doing that, generously lead, share it with other people, learn out loud, learn what you're doing, things like that. And that this cycle has come out of it. This actually came out of a conversation we had with Liz Miller-Gershfield, who's on the call right now, where this was kind of her when she first joined the salon, right? This was the journey that she went through, and she kind of described how she learned AI, and this was what she went through, and we've kind of articulated it, and it just feels very, very right. So thank you, Liz, for that inspiration back then. But Leah, you know, let's talk also about the values of the salon, right? Because how people show up for the salon is why it's such a remarkable group. It's not about technology. It's about us interacting. So if you'd be so kind.
Well, sure. Well, I feel like the world feels very unstable and crazy. AI makes my brain sort of go to this place of, okay, I try to be in the moment and, you know, go into my little mid-journey garden and just grow things there. But one of the things that I appreciate is that, you know, for the last 2.5 years, twice a month, at least, if not more, you and I, we have a conversation about AI, and we all come together and we talk about AI, and you go onto the Mighty Network and people are having conversations about it. And as crazy and as bonkers as the whole thing seems, the salon, I think, is sort of this constant that we all have as the world around us is changing and shifting and evolving. And I think one of the reasons we have that is because of our values. And so I'll go ahead and read them now. Our first value, which is, you know, this started a conversation. You and I had a phone call. We were introduced by our friend, and I don't know, 2 hours later, we decided to have a conversation every other week online because we had so many questions about this crazy new thing that was new to us, generative AI. So curiosity is our first value. Curiosity. We are, wait, hold on. I have okay. We are eager to ask the obvious questions, learn new things, and experiment. Our relentless quest for adventure and exploration ignites our inner spark, transforming our curiosity into unexpected discoveries and newfound positions. Playfulness. Playfulness, we value creativity, joy, and the freedom to experiment. We play first, transforming learning into a captivating journey. We collaborate and mindfully create together when we can to learn more, make friends, and develop new circles of trust. Remember, all work and no play is how we did things before the salon. Empathy. We are respectful, inclusive, and kind. We value diverse perspectives, recognizing that our differences make us stronger. We accept that people might be afraid and angry, and we work to understand them. We actively practice gratitude and acknowledge the efforts and successes of those around us. Humans matter. Bravery, which is feeling particularly of the moment this week. Bravery, we have the courage to step into the unknown, taking bold actions in the face of fear and challenging ourselves to push the boundaries of what we thought possible. Let's face it, with everything changing as fast as it is, we are all making this up as we go along anyway. We might as well be brave about it. And I know Kyle and I, we've had a couple of very brave conversations this week. I feel like that's something we have taken to heart. Generosity. We are willing to share our resources, feedback, and wisdom with others and support each other's growth and development. There is so much happening and so much to learn. We can't possibly keep up with it all. Understand that even if something is obvious to you, it might be a profound revelation to someone else. Learn out loud, share what you know, generously lead.
Yeah, and it's this is a remarkably generous community, and it's different than other groups I see out there that are very much about, I don't know, mastery and mastering and master the tools and learn the tools and do the tech, and I feel like there's something different going on there, and the values are what's going on. So so it's a pretty magical group that way. Hang on a sec.
Yeah, I think that a lot of AI groups I have found are very centered around tech, and they kind of come out of a tech world, and it's tech this and venture capital and tech and tech and tech, and that's great, but we don't need another one of those groups. I think that you and I, with our creative backgrounds, I mean, you're tech, but you're like OG tech.
I've never really been tech. I know just enough tech to do the creative expression stuff I want to do.
We're both creative people. We're coming at this from a very creative place, and that feels very refreshing and around a lot of conversations that are just not all that creative.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of the stuff I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So we were super excited to announce that the AI Salon Mastermind is live. So if you remember what the AI Salon Mastermind is, it is a more highly focused part of the community. It's a subscription membership that gives you access to mastermind level clubs and hubs, the Mastery Workshop, content and learning libraries. You'll get a founding mastermind badge and recognition. Anyone that joins the mastermind in 2025 will be a founding mastermind forever, and there's special pricing through 2025, and you'll have early access to new events, features, and initiatives. When you're in the AI Salon, what you'll notice is to the left of mastermind spaces, they now have a crown, right, for the mastermind, which I just love. Vicky came up with that idea, and so those are the spaces that if you subscribe to the mastermind, you'll have access to. Over the year, we're going to be figuring out, what that means, adding new things, adding new activities, doing more live activities in the salon itself, and we're really excited about it. So Leah, tell everyone why you're excited about this and why we put this together.
Well, first of all, I want to say a huge thank you to Vicky and to Brendan, if it wasn't because of the two of them and their hard work putting this together, it would not be what it is. I think launching a membership group is something it's a learning experience. And as we do in the salon, we play first. So one of the things that I am excited about is that we're really building this, right? This is the beginning. And we're offering at a price that I hope everyone feels like they can figure out how to finance or budget. And certainly if you can't, or that's an issue, please get in touch. We'll figure out how to do whatever we need to do so that you can be part of the membership. I think, this is the beginning. And so everyone here gets to be part of building what's coming next. And we're going to play, we're going to try out new things. Sometimes when you try out new things, you don't quite launch on the day you were supposed to, but that's okay because you launch the next day, right? I'm really excited about what we're building, and I think that it is the direction our salon needs to go.
Yeah, exactly. And to find it, so if you go to the salon, we've got our 7-step, onboarding thing, and step 7 is now join the mastermind. So if you click on join the mastermind, it describes, what it is, why it's there, things like that. And then this button will take you to the 2 subscriptions. So you can do it monthly or you can do it for the year. And the $20 a month, that's good for 2025. And that's how you do it. So if you haven't signed up yet, go sign up, be a part of it. And again, the idea here is to create a deeper level of engagement and commitment, create kind of this smaller, more focused version of the salon where we can really dig in together. And I'm just super excited about that and all of you and digging in and leveling up our game. So let's talk. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. If you don't, it's a fairly straightforward thing. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. But if you have questions, please raise your hand. Let's dig in. So let me tee up where I am, and then I'd kind of like to hear where you are. Where I've gotten, so here's what VO3 did for me. And for those of you on the call, if you don't know what VO3 is, it's Google's new video generation model. And video generating models have been getting better and better and better, and they've been getting, less janky and less janky. But for the most part, it would just generate the video frames and no audio. And, Luma Labs, you could create sound effects and things like that, but that was about it. VO3 lets you say, I want a man and a woman standing on the beach declaring their love for each other with symphony music playing in the background at sunset, and then it'll write the dialogue and they will act to one another. It's the first of the video models I've seen that you can look at it and go, shit, I could make a film with this, right? I could make a film. Now, is it janky? Is it expensive? Is it all that? Yes, absolutely, right? It's all the things AI is, right? It is completely imperfect and lots to hate about it. But for me, it represents a bigger idea that we have entered a world, and it's amazing, like young kids are going to grow up in this world, but we have entered a world where people are going to literally be able to ask for what they want and get it.
Yeah, just make
anything they want. They want a AAA video game about lemmings, they get a AAA video game about lemmings. They want a movie that tells their story and their struggles in a really dramatic way. They're going to be able to have that. And, I started the AI Learning Lab ostensibly as a channel to talk about tools. Here's a tool. A tool came out. Look how cool it is. Look what it can do. Here's what we can do with it.
love tools.
Love tools.
Yeah.
Love tools. Love geeking it. Love the tools. What VO did for me is it said the tools are 100% irrelevant at this point, because what we can just assume is that all of the tools are going to be so good that you can use any of them and you'll get what you want, right? We're not quite there yet, but we're 2 or 3 years away from just getting anything you want. And so what it did for me, Leah, is it spun me all the way back. I went back to our very first conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the idea.
Yeah.
That's right. The most important thing is the idea. We've got Danny here going to be talking about creativity.
That's right.
And self-expression and the idea. And so I feel like that becomes our job in the future.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
our
I think
job becomes to have a point of view.
Right.
And to not just vomit out crap with these tools that can vomit out crap, but to have an idea, to go in with intentionality. And so that's the big thing for me, that the tools get increasingly irrelevant, and the only thing that's important is the idea.
Well, and I think what I like is it isn't even just the idea. This is where we come back to tools, because I think the execution of the idea is where our voice comes through as a creator,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm a photographer. I don't care what camera I use. I mean, there's photographers who do, but to me, it's the camera and the lighting, and that doesn't. So what is it that makes my photograph one of my own photographs? And it is the execution. It is how I manipulate and execute the tools, right? I have an idea, but it's also my relationship to the tech that allows me to create what I want to create. And I think that is like, that's the piece for me that often gets lost in a lot of the AI generations, is that I don't see people manipulating the tech to make it in their own voice, right? Something we did with the Midjourney prompt workshops we were doing is we take snippets from our journals and we put that into Midjourney. That can only be our writing, so that we can start to get something that feels like our own voice. And I think that's where, that to me is what, because a lot of people have a lot of really great ideas, right? Ideas they come from all over the place, right? But it's like, how do we take that tech and make it into our own idea?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what I found striking about the launch of VO was that so many people just made these one-off videos showing what they could do. Look, I can do this, I can do this, I can do it better. But it was like, well, so can everyone else. So how are you going to manipulate the tech? How are you going to put your voice into it? So it's still Leah Fasten's movie, or it's still Kyle Shannon's movie, or it's still Danny Kravitz's show, or whatever, right? And that to me is where I think that's where I get really excited about AI. But that still is, it's the same thing. It's the same thing artists have been doing from the beginning of time, is manipulating tools to speak in our own voice.
Yeah, and it comes down to storytelling, and then I look at the cycle, right? So when we created the cycle, play first, mindfully create, generously lead. I was sort of thinking of that in the context of, there's all these tools to learn. You play first, you learn some tools, you mindfully create, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you and I were talking before we started the show, I had a whole new connection, a whole bunch of synapses fired. That, like, wait a minute, that cycle is also the creative cycle.
That's right.
So play first is when you're just experimenting. You're on a photo shoot and you're like, well, let me move the chair over here and let me move this light over here. And maybe that's not the right lens. You're just playing. Let me put this person here, right?
Yeah.
And then mindfully create is like, okay, so now you've done your photo shoot. You've got hundreds of photos you made. Which ones are you going to show to the world, right? Which ones are you going to curate out and modify and edit, right? Mm-hmm. And share those with the world. And then generously lead is putting them in the world and making a difference, right? So that cycle lives on a bunch of different levels. It can live on the tool level, but it can really live on, our ability to say, hey, I want to play around with these tools enough to see if something comes to me. Now I've got a story I want to tell. Now I'm going to tell that. I'm going to curate these tools in a certain way and my ideas in a certain way. And then I'm going to put them in the world and hopefully make a difference. And,
and lead, your voice gets to take a leadership role in that space. Right?
Yeah. And I think
that's leading.
I think we all now get to have a level of professional self-expression in literally any discipline we choose, including programming and music and, writing and spreadsheet manipulation.
The lost art of spreadsheet manipulation. It's a new genre.
Exactly. Spreadsheet jockeys, right?
Yeah. I'm excited to hear what Danny has to say about this, because Danny's all about creativity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. Let me just open it up. Just raise your hand if you have anything you'd like to share. I'd love to hear your relationship with, where are you on the journey? What do you think about I don't know, creativity, self-expression, things like that. Just love to hear what where your head is these days.
Or something you've made recently that you're really excited to share too. If you've made some art or something, a piece you want to share with the group. Or not.
Kath.
Hey, good to see you guys. It's been a while.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I had to take a brain break from AI.
Right.
But the cool thing is, it's funny, I didn't know tonight was creativity, but I took a brain break, and I also was hearing a lot about AI art and is it right? And anyway, I started making my own art. Very bad art. It's like getting in touch with like my inner 4-year-old, basically, kind of like bubble art.
Love it.
So that's been so much fun. So that's what I've been doing, and that's why I haven't been around so much. But the cool thing is that now I'm using AI because I'm painting a table tonight while we're here. And so I started it. I'm doing all kinds of cool colors. But then I'm like, what if I went into Dolly I want to add this element to the table. Show me some examples.
Yeah.
And then it gave me some ideas. how to enhance what I'm already doing. And then there's some art that I can't do. So I was looking at decoupage and maybe ordering some.
Yeah.
And then I found this woman she will make you your decoupage sheet that you can use in art. So you can upload your AI art and they'll make it into a decoupage sheet that you can use on other art.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm
Can I say
pausing.
something that you just said that's interesting, Kath? Because I've seen two-dimensional work you've made using generative AI, right? I've seen it. You've shown it. So is that art? Because I mean, would you define that as art? Because I would, but I don't know if you would. The work that you've made using your generative tools.
I think I got support in making that art because it's not all mine. But I also got support from the paints that I bought.
Right.
And the canvases and the table that I'm using. So it's different though. I would prefer to use art that people have given their permission to be used in AI. I think that'd be a perfect way to have it. But yeah,
so making it with like a model. So if you're making it with like Firefly, which is a model that it's what they consider a clean model. All the work in there is permission. It's Creative Commons. So that is that art if the data that's in the model is clean data, as they say.
Yeah, I would prefer that. I didn't know about that, so I'll definitely check that out. But yeah, but anyway, my art synapses in my brain did not spark until I joined this group. Guys made that happen. It was making the AI art that made my brain start to say, "Ooh, this feels really good. Now I want to do this, and I also want to do this in real life." So
That's
it's
cool.
funny that I'm here tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kath. Brandon.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't raise my hand. Sorry.
So my kids have been AI natives, and Kyle, we talked about this on Friday on the lab, but wanted to share just something that we created. So my daughter rides the school bus, and she had a really great bus driver this year. So on the last day, a couple of days before the last day, we took his picture, and we ended up putting
I love that.
putting his likeness on a coloring picture for my daughter to color, and we presented it on the last day of school. And so she was, really, he was really impressed with that. And it's just one little example of how we can use art. I mean, my kids are making songs, they're making pictures, they're making, now they'll probably be making VO3 generations. So it's fascinating to see how the next generation of artists is using these tools to empower themselves to take that next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Leah, you asked the question about, is it art? Brandon, I think it's your 4-year-old that made a song, right? And he says, Daddy, can I hear the song I wrote? Like, he made a song in Suno, right? And now he wants to listen to the art he made. So it's like, I think it really is like, it's that choice. It's that moment where you choose to say, like, is it soup yet? Like, this is a thing. Like, this is something I want to put in the world, or this is something I want to attach my name to. And like, even if it's a 4-year-old, making a song with Suno and he knows nothing about music, but if it makes him happy and it's his song, then it's art. Like,
Yeah.
And it's a good song.
Yeah, that's great. Kaki.
So speaking of creativity, Leah, when we talked about me not bringing my camera out, I am going to this thing called Release the Beast this weekend, where it's the first time that they let the horses out to pasture, and these are all adopted horses and former race horses and stuff. And last year I went and I just had my little cell phone, but I'm actually going to break out my camera and I'm going to bring it out and make art with that. And the other thing, I just wanted to give a kudos because I wish I could generate art with AI the same way that CJ Fletcher does. Because like CJ, like, you're so good, and sometimes I look at your stuff and I wonder, how did he get that texture, or how did he get that, because I love to be creative with that too. And if I could find a way to I will in time get better at it, that it's exciting to me.
Are you taking advantage of all the things CJ offers here at the salon?
I was gonna say.
Well, I didn't know, because I've been so busy with job search, trying to find work and everything. It's been hard for me to kind of focus in, but we still need creativity all the time, right? It makes us better, and when I wrote my children's books. That whole process that we went through was just amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
How everything just fell into place.
Well, connect with CJ. He's got the Vanguard in the salon, which is an invite only thing for people that want to be intentional about art. So,
oh, cool.
If you're wanting to be intentional about art,
I am. I am.
You got an opportunity there, right?
Yeah,
So that's
thanks.
awesome. Awesome, Bob. Bob, where are you, Bob?
Sorry. I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm walking. The cell service sucks. Hey, thanks everybody for coming tonight. Actually, every time I come to this, I learn something that I don't expect. But I'm starting to use every day. I'm now making up what I call a crazy prompt and just seeing what happens. And it's just based upon, this is a stupid example, but my daughter wanted to replace her toilet. And it is amazing how if you just put in toilet replacement, what you will get. And from that, the creativity, I've taken that and taken the same prompt and put it in different elements, and just fun to see the difference of interpretations.
Yeah.
Something
I think it'd be really interesting to know, like, why you're choosing the prompts that you're choosing and what you're being attracted to, and what are the triggers that make you think I want to put this in. Would be an interesting to investigate.
Yeah.
Be very intentional, and it got boring. Okay? So I started just letting it was whatever kind of popped up on my mind. And I've got in different rock and roll groups to, unfortunately, Kyle did this thing last night that caused me to start thinking about how it was. And
Bob,
yeah.
I'm gonna mute you just because your signal's breaking up enough. We can't really hear you. So, but thanks. Got it. Beautiful. Thank you, Liz.
Hey. Okay. So I have to say that I don't know whether it was a crisis, but what you discussed in the massive power of VO2 and whatever the tool is, how it's all so easy. And that's where I've been, like the ease of these tools, they force you to examine where the creative value lies. And
yeah.
And so, like, really drilling down there. And I think both of you both were two sides of the same coin, the idea and the expression, the crafting, getting your hands in the clay of it. Whether it's AI or it's something tangible, it's all that's it. That's what it is. And I feel like so much of the conversation is out there, not here. And please excuse my voice. I'm sick, but I'm not exposing any of you, so that's good. But there's so much talk about automation and efficiency, and I feel like there's so many people who are talking about creativity, but with those words, and I find it troubling because I don't think that's where it's at. That's not where the value is, and that's not where the intersection with us is. And for me personally, it's just been a tremendous amount of new intersections created by sort of weaving back and forth between the image and video generation and then the tool creation, and kind of thinking conceptually between the two. So anyway, that's my.
Well, I think in that journey, and in that way that only Liz would do that journey, is where the voice comes through, right? And it's like the opposite of automation. It's saying, okay, here's a tool. How do I make this my thing? And it's that journey of going back and forth, and the inspirations and the sparks and the mistakes that get made that are kind of happy mistakes. Like the things in improv that we do that we're like, that was a mistake, but now it turns into a plot line, right? Like, and having the bravery to take those risks and to look at that critically and say, this was a mistake and it wasn't what I intended, but damn, that's cool, right? Or something's resonating with me here. I love this, and I'm going to trust that love, and I'm going to put that to the next level, and that's where our voice starts to come through. Yeah, I agree.
On the point you made about people are going to efficiency and things like that, the very first, when I first started learning AI, the very first place I went was, oh, I'll make a Zapier automation. And what I realized probably within, I don't know, 3 or 4 months is, oh, the reason I went to automations is because historically that's all computers have ever done, is they take what we currently do and make it more efficient. And so when you have a new tool like AI, I feel like it's one of those natural things, like you're going to use it like you've used it before. And then when you use it to do automations, then you realize, oh, it can do these other things. And some people break out of that and some people don't, because it's, I think this is like, horse and buggy going to car kind of thing. Like some people are going to be stuck in horse and buggy mode for a long time, even though, we're out racing cars,
It's
so
the paradigm, so it's hard to get out of that.
Yeah. So crazy. It's great. Heather.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I've got a headset on. Yeah, I've been using AI a bit more since I was last here. Probably using it in sort of a very regimented, vanilla way, but I'm doing an app and really just having conversations with ChatGPT, and it's sort of helping me when I get stuck. So just, I guess, the classic co-pilot sort of way of using it. But it's really allowed me to come a lot further. I mean, I used to struggle over some JavaScript and wear my arm out clicking and, trying to brute force it for hours and hours. But now I like, oh, I want all my images to form a collage, and boop, it gives me all that. The one thing that's funny, though, is that I seem to be relying on it as a friend more, a little more, like, I don't know. I actually enjoy these chats with it, and I'm beginning to wonder if I'm getting a little too reliant on that, because it's so empathetic and it describes me so well, and I sort of feel like this is almost going to be crippling in the long run if I'm just coddled this much. So I have to watch that. But I have to remember to talk to real people, which is why I'm here. Because I could easily just sit there talking to ChatGPT for hours.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's ever had that same experience or.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I feel like ChatGPT is like the golden retriever, creative collaborator, where it's just always like, you're the best, boss. That's a great idea. Let me give you some more, juice. So
it keeps offering to do so much more. Like, let me give you more. It's always, let me give you more and more and more. And I feel bad, but telling it, no, I need time to process this. And then I'm always thanking it, which I'm not supposed to do. But, hey, I can't help but be I have to be polite. It's so nice.
I think mine all the time. I always say, hey, Quinn, how's it going? And Quinn isn't going. She's just waiting for my prompt.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Well, that's awesome. Thank you.
Nice to check in.
Cool. So let me jump over and do a little bit of news, some news items. And before I jump in and do news, if anyone who's a club leader, are there any announcements that anyone wants to make about their clubs? Is there anything coming up that you want the good people to know about? Vicky.
Oh, wait, you said good people. I'm in the wrong call. Sorry. So I do co-lead a club with Joy Purdy, who's here also. But what I wanted to say is that we have an LOL on Saturday, 4:00 Central, so 5 Eastern, 3 Mountain, 2 Pacific, on how to create websites with AI.
And LOL stands for Learn Out Loud. They're the informal, open to anyone kind of thing. So spread the word and go learn how to make websites with AI. Yet another channel you can express yourself. Thank you. Beautiful.
Bring your ideas of what you want to make your website about, and we'll make it for you.
Beautiful. Brandon.
Yeah, so I also run the AI Life Hacks Club, which is the kind of catch-all club for everything that's AI related and how we can help you improve your life using the power of AI. We have a meeting coming up tomorrow evening for masterminds, as we're also doing a hack of the week where we'll post a new hack every Monday all summer long. So check it out in the Life Hacks Club.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. All right. Okay, so let me share a couple of news items that I think are worth paying attention to, and then we will bring up Danny. Okay, so the first news item is, if you haven't heard of this, pay attention to it. One of the bizarre things about the AI tool world right now is that it's getting harder and harder to tell what's a model, what's a frontier lab, what's just an application that was written on top of someone else's model. There's this new image generation model called Flux Context, Flux Kontext. It is the first thing that allows you to edit an image without destroying the original image. It's really good at it, and it's in almost all the tools. Like I'm sure it's in Leonardo, it's in Adobe Firefly, it's in Kling, it's in FreePic, it's in Fall, it's in Comfy UI, it's in Replicate, it's probably in others. Pay attention to it and go play with it if you can, because you can do things like start with a source image and just say, change his cowboy hat to a bowler, and it'll do it, but his face won't change. And you can really start to edit images. That image to the right there, that upper left corner was the start image. And then it said, basically put her on a white background in all these different poses. And so it maintained character consistency in the shirt and things like that. And then you can do things like, put her in a suit jacket and it'll do that and still maintain who she is, or, change her hair. So that's one worth paying attention to, because again, it goes into that area of, you're going to be able to do anything you want to do, right? You've got this character idea, you generated it in Midjourney, and now you want to have that character do 1,000 different things. Well, now you can start to do that. Hello, there we go. Notebook LM today just announced you can now share Notebook LM notebooks. So if you've made really cool Notebook LM notebooks, you can now share them with others, which is super cool. HeyGen today announced AI Studio, which is, if you know Descript, which is a word-based video editor where it sort of pulls the script out of the video, and then you can edit the words and it'll chop up the video. It's similar to that, except they're adding on, they're doing it with avatars, so you can create fake people doing stuff. HeyGen's quality is a little, it's not super great. There's other things out there that are better, but that studio product, that editing suite, is pretty good. And they've also added a new thing called gesture control, where you could record gestures like, point to the camera, point to yourself, but give a thumbs up. And then you can, in the script, you can call for those gestures and your avatar will do those things. So that one's getting decently sophisticated. Claude came out with Sonnet 4 and Opus 4. If you remember way back when, Opus is that really big model. A lot of the new coding platforms, the vibe coding platforms, are using Claude 4, both Sonnet and Opus, and the coding is really good. Lovable, for example, now uses Claude 4 Sonnet. I'm pretty sure it's Sonnet. And then related to this, Apple and Anthropic just announced a deal that they are going to create a vibe coding platform. So the fact that Claude is so good at coding, they're now going to roll that in with Apple. So now imagine, Xcode development, but being able to vibe code it. So that's a big deal, largely because, the fact that Apple doesn't have their own AI model at this point is shocking to me, but there you have it. But, that we could end up with a pretty good vibe coding platform. And then the other thing to pay attention to, if you haven't been paying attention to this, I've been talking about this for the past 2 weeks. AI agents are starting to proliferate. Manus, GenSpark, Floweth, Perplexity Agent just came out yesterday. Today, U.com announced Ari, which is a thing that will do all sorts of research for you, and then put out a PDF of like a written report with a title page and charts and graphs, and it's really quite amazing. So just pay attention to that space, because the tools are starting to become tools that aggregate other tools and use them in sequence, and they're going to do lots of things for you. So again, lots of stuff to pay attention to, but again, let's go back to the most important thing is, what's the idea? What are you trying to accomplish? So,
well, and I feel like what's starting to happen is that you know, 2 years ago, everything was still really janky,
Mm-hmm.
right? You wouldn't you wouldn't use the AI tools because doing it with people would still be better with human. But
Yeah.
what we're starting to see is everything sort of coming together.
Yeah.
And you can really start, like, all the stuff we thought was super in the future is now, and it's only been 2 years.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like imagine 3 years from now. Like 3 years from now, you will speak a feature film into existence, right? And you know, Danny's going to come up and talk about how he's written films the old-fashioned way with words.
Right. To be able to take that screenplay he wrote and just put it right into VO or another tool, and the movie will get made.
Yeah, and it'll get made in any style he wants. Or he could say, you know what? Actually, I want this as a playable video game, right? I want this as an immersive 3D world. Boom, there it'll be.
I want all of them, and I'm going to launch a brand and release them all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of that, AI Salon presents. Danny, are you ready to come up and wow us and shake us up and unsettle us in deep and fundamental ways?
All of the above.
Beautiful. So this is Danny Kravitz. Danny and I have talked a couple of times now. Every time I talk to Danny, I leave the conversation completely lit on fire. I know, let me change my sharing settings. He is a creative professional. He'll tell you his some of the stuff he's done. But Danny, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited to have you inspire us and take us to the next level.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. I'm going to jump right in. So let me share a little bit about who I am. My name is Danny, and I'm a working screenwriter, and I'm an author, and I'm a music producer. I'm kind of unquenchable in the music department. Like all I do with every minute I'm not doing other things is produce and create music. But I'm also a professor of film and screenwriting at Columbia College in Chicago and DePaul University, and I'm the founder of this. It's called the Creative's Edge. It's a creativity and productivity accelerator that focuses on writing crafts, musical crafts, and visual crafts. And I was thinking about this recently. On a good day, I estimate I probably spend 35 to 40% of my waking hours on a good day in flow. Like I'm like 8-10 straight hours, and we're including like the bathroom break and the thing. I live for being in flow and being creativity and being into creativity. So I'm really into creativity. So I want to talk today about AI, but I want to talk a little bit about creativity as it relates to productivity within AI. And where you guys were starting, I feel like this is picking up exactly where you left off in the conversations we were having today, because I'm going to ask the question right up front, not like how do we best use tools, but how do we get the most out of ourselves to utilize these tools.
Oh, that's great.
You know, we're wanting to promote and unleash our productivity and our creativity and our capacity for feeling good. And that's a really important part of this, because in addition to being productive, it feels good to be in flow. And that's one of the lines that I think you can get on either side of when you're doing all this creative stuff and using creativity tools and AI tools. Do I feel good? I think it's a really important question that we always have to keep asking. AI is not new. Productivity and creativity tools, they are evolving and they're unbelievable. And every time I talk to this crowd, whether it's Brandon or Kyle, I'm always like, oh my God. But, they present the same opportunities and conundrums that tech has always presented. And as creators, I think we're always dealing with the same issues. What are our goals? What do we desire? What's our motivation like? Are we inspired or not inspired? Are we procrastinating? Do we get into flow, or is there a lack of flow in our lives? Are we progressing towards a goal? It's always the same. It's just, the tools are getting better and better and better. Today's assumption in my talk with you, and I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, and feel free to, anyone can ask questions, but I will definitely do a question and answer at the end. So we can just kind of get through it. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. The assumption I'm making today, and I'm asking you to come along with me, is that productivity and creativity using AI or other tools or no tools, it's a good thing. And the absence of it is less of a good thing. Okay, so that we're just going to agree on that. So then we have to solve the problem of how do we deal with the lack of or the less than desired productivity or creativity. Okay, so all my academic work, while also specific to craft, screenwriting, book writing, music writing, it's also about helping people realize their potential and more of their potential. And what I started learning in my academic career was that it was about the craft. People had to learn the craft, but there was this whole other side of creativity and motivation stuff that they also had to attend to as their craft continued. Okay. Brandon introduced me to this crowd and to Kyle and into the AI Salon and into AI. And I remember when Brandon saying to me, he just needed a little help to get the story that's inside of him out into the world, you know. And Brandon, I'm going to talk a little bit about Brandon today as a case study of how he's used AI. But again, the argument we're having that I'm presenting is creativity and productive creativity. It's darn fun, it's darn rewarding, and it's vitally important to be creative in your life. Okay, so a lot of what we're talking about today is absence and clearing away and kind of quieting, and then in that space coming up and empowering productivity and creativity, even flow. So for all the different levels of projects and different things you're at, whether your creativity is really vibrant or whether you're hibernating right now, this is kind of to talk for all of us about how do we remove the constraints. And there are constraints always, and they're not easily, but they're removable. And again, remember, I'm operating from this place that values and prioritizes happiness, not just productivity, but productivity that leads to and even can, you know, maximize positive emotional experiences. Okay, so in terms of my own creative work, I write books, I write movies, I write music, I produce albums for people, I do all this stuff. And I wanted to share with you why I do what I do, okay? Because like I said, I spend 40% of my day making creative stuff. So I do it because it feels good. It feels good to engage my mind in not just first gear, but in second, third, and fourth or fifth gear, the kind of gears that start going when you get into flow states. It feels good, and I like how it feels to problem solve. I like to make and observe and see connections and make choices. I like to travel along pathways that are evolving and coming into existence as I'm working. I like to experience emotional catharsis and then what I call intellectual catharsis, where it's just like, man, that's such a good idea. I'm excited, you know, as opposed to just pure, like, I'm crying because I needed to cry 20 years ago and I just figured out that I needed that. The other thing I love is the birth of a goal that comes out of my work, and then my slow and then kind of getting faster progress towards that goal. And all of it is, you know, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So when Brandon first introduced me to ChatGPT, I was writing a script, and I remember thinking, like, I'm not friggin' using this. Because I'm kind of like to do my own work anyway. But at one point I was really tired, and Brandon was like, this is really, I'm telling you can write some great stuff. So I asked ChatGPT to write me a description of a deer running through the woods in this scene in my movie where hunters are they're hunters who don't kill deer, because my movie is really about nice people, and they're so nice they don't even shoot the deer they hunt. But the description that the ChatGPT gave me was incredible. And it was like the animal comes running through the woods and the light glistens off its sweaty back and all this great stuff. And I was like, wow, I love this. This is great. Let me play with this and tweak this a little. And I've continued to kind of be a convert in that, oh, I'm going to start using these tools too. Now, what was fascinating about that instance is a week later, my proofreader said to me, this is a great part of this thing, this scene right here, but I'm just wondering, did you write that or did AI write that? And I said, AI. And he said, deer don't sweat. So if you're going to be using AI, you better pay attention. And I thought, okay, that for me sums up exactly how I'm approaching this, okay? Brandon has been using it way more. So Brandon has written books, drafts of screenplays, and he's been successful with it. Kyle too. Kyle's created this incredible musical with the help of AI, and it's real. It's a real musical, and it's good. So how are they doing this? Well, I work with Brandon, so I know a little bit about what Brandon is doing. So the first thing Brandon was doing, as it relates to his screenplay writing, is he knew what his goal was. Now, that doesn't assume that everyone needs to know what their goals are, because we have to have space to discover what we might be interested in, and that can lead to a goal. But at some point when you're doing creative work, if you want to be productive, you kind of have to stumble onto a goal. So Brandon knew what his goal was. It was to write the screenplay. The second really most important part of this, or not most part, the second important part of this is Brandon had a level of craft with storytelling that he continued to build on during the process. So as Brandon was working on the screenplay, he was getting better and better at screenwriting. When he needed more information about screenwriting, he would get it. So he was always building and building upon his craft, and he had a level of craft that was enough to keep him moving. The third part of it is, and this is, I think, the most important part. Brandon had an empowering approach to creative productivity, an empowering approach, okay? And I'll get into what I mean by that. So anyway, so that's one example of someone who's successful with AI and creativity with AI. The two things that, to go a little further with this, the two things that lead to successful, satisfying use of tech tools, in my opinion, are having the craft, which is part of, let's assume you have a goal, or maybe you don't have a goal and you are literally just playing, and there is so much value in that, it's crazy. But let's say you do have a goal. Once you have a goal, having the craft, and then having the IPSA, I call it the IPSA approach to creativity, and I'm going to talk about what that is. So, let me go on here. I asked my students recently to do an exercise, and they said, I was like, write an idea for a short film, and then within that idea, write an opening scene. And I did it on purpose. The point of the exercise was not the work. The point was to ask them what they were thinking and feeling about the work. And I got some different answers, but the message that came through most clearly was this inhibiting feeling that was keeping them from their successful execution of this task. Some of it was preceded by clear thought, some of it wasn't, but the message was, I feel pressure to come up with something brilliant right now, to be immediately brilliant. And this idea must come out fully formed. And I started to work with this with these particular students, but I see it all across, all across every level of creativity, but certainly at the levels where people are just getting their feet wet with creativity. The pressure to come up with something immediately brilliant assumes that that's the way creative productivity works, and it does not support productivity. That's a very, very, very small part of the way creativity works. Sometimes it does work that way, but even then, I could break that down into why that's not true. But if you believe that creativity works by being brilliant and churning out finished work, it can be a real hindrance, and it can really shut you down, okay? So to go even deeper into this, let's go back to what I call the IPSA approach. It's approaching your creativity and productivity with an informed, playful, similar to your wheel, self-acceptance approach, okay? And what I mean by that is when you are starting a project or playing with AI or any other creative tools, you have to start from an informed place. You have to operate from a place of understanding how creativity and productivity actually work. If you have realistic expectations, not expectations that are based on some fantasy about how Steven Spielberg does it or how this guy or how that person does it, but based on real knowledge and data as it relates to creative work that's been done and other creators that have made stuff. If you strip away all those assumptions, you can operate from a really powerful place. And if you don't strip away those assumptions, you're kind of shortchanging yourself because most of them aren't true. If you knew the full history of a creative project, like a film or a painting, if you knew the full history and included in that knowledge the past experiences that may have influenced the choices of the artist, if you knew all that stuff, you'd be surprised at how most of the time, most brilliant stuff ain't brilliant at all. Not until the end when you see it. The more productive we can be, the more we do this creative stuff, and the more experience we get, we finally start to understand this. But we don't want to start understanding this when we're on the last 3 holes of our life. We want to try to empower people to learn this sooner so that they don't keep themselves from going forward and trying to be creative.
Can I jump in, Danny? I just want to clarify something. When you say strip away, you're talking about when you're going into a creative exercise or a creative zone, right? The creative flows you talked about. you're saying strip away comparing yourself to, this has got to be as good as The Godfather. This has got to be as good as, you know, whatever, that song that just won the Grammy that I sing all the time. Like, you're saying find a place where you can move that to the side. Like, talk more about that, because that to me feels sometimes like a near impossibility.
Yeah. So that is what I'm talking about, and I'm gonna kind of make my way over to that.
Okay.
But absolutely, that is what I'm talking about, and it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's also not impossible to do. You just have to kind of look at everything that's going on. So I went to a Sting concert recently, and this is just a little anecdote. And the gift that Sting gave it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. But the gift he gave to the audience, whether they knew it or not, was when he played the most average, mediocre song. And he said, hey, this is a song that it's the first song I ever wrote, first pop song I ever wrote. And he played this song that sounded like a 7th grader, just got a guitar a week ago and had a battle of the bands he was trying to write a song for, and it was an incredibly mediocre song. It was a song, but there was nothing foreshadowing what he would go on to do. And that was the gift, because, you know, Sting went on to write some of the most mind-bogglingly good music ever, but he was absolutely a beginner once. And not only was he a beginner, in his excellent work, those ideas often started as not so brilliant. But the assumption, and again, Kyle, I will get to how to undo this. The assumption is that brilliance, otherwise known as Sting, creates spontaneous greatness. It doesn't leave any room for being human. Okay, so I think we're all agreeing that we're onto something here. It's also not true. So being informed about your creativity means understanding how it really thrives and how creativity thrives. And one of the ways you can get around believing that stuff is just get informed. So for example, if you start to think about a great painting starts as a line. Any great painting starts as a line. Any great song, it starts as one note or one phrase. Any great book, it starts as a sentence, right? Art and creativity and productivity do not become what they ultimately become right away. And if the first line or scratch that you make, let's say of a painting, if it's objectively not brilliant, that doesn't matter, because that's what leads you to the next line and to the next day. And so if we can stop looking at it with this judgment and saying, oh, this has to be anything, we can still have a goal. It doesn't have to be pure play, but we can still have a goal for a project. But we can get to the next session and the next set of discovering something new and the next pattern and the next complex idea. You can make an argument that the Mona Lisa is this incredible painting. And if you said, what's the most important stroke of paint or, you know, line on the Mona Lisa? And I would argue it's like one of the first ones, you know, and someone could say, no, it's the hair on the shoulder. It's like, really? Is it? Because what got them to the final project or final product? All kinds of other things that were completely uninhibited by non-informed judgment, et cetera, et cetera. This leads into the next part of this, Kyle, which is, I was glad to see this in your wheel. The next part of this approach is a playfulness, and I'll just talk about it a little bit. If we approach our creative work as play, even our productive, goal-oriented work, if we remove those judgments and those expectations and those needs for validation, if we pay attention to that habit of making destructive comparisons, oh, I need to write this as good as Sting or about Dylan, without knowing all the facts, we're undermining our real rich capacity and robust capacity for creativity and productivity. Letting the pleasure of creativity be the driver, and then the outcome be the byproduct of the creative process and play. That's what productivity really is, and that's a recipe for long-term consistent productivity. So without playfulness, like for example, if you have judgment, you draw a line and you go, oh, that line's not genius. Well, how the hell do you keep going? You know, and that is something we are absolutely going to unlearn as we get more and more, as we build more craft and as we get more and more productive as a creator. But the real creative kind of, you know, day-to-day creative person, they see that line and they go, wow, look at that line. That line's going to lead to that line. No way. And they're just having so much damn fun. It never would occur to them that line is a problem at all. But to all of us starting out, it's the opposite. It's like, if I use the tennis analogy, could you imagine if tennis players started judging their first step onto the court? You know, you got to get on the court, you got to put on shoes, you got to take the racket, you You got to start hitting, got to hit a bunch into that, this and that. And then like 3 hours later, you start your match. You know, imagine if you judged your first step onto a court if you were a great tennis player. One of the questions I answer a lot, and I'm asked a lot, and I will say the question. It's, people are always asking me, you know, how do I become a successful writer, or how do I become a successful artist? And I always tell them, the successful ones, and you have to also define success, how you define success, but for the moment we'll just use success. The successful ones, they're the ones who like doing it a lot, and they do it enough to get good at it, and then success builds from that. So was Sting the best songwriter? No, but I guarantee you Sting was one of the most playful, process-loving, excited to do it people. And that's what ultimately led to his craft and led to his success. Okay. The last part of this, oh, Brandon, yes.
Yeah, and I just want to go in, this may be right where you're going, but for me, one of the things I had to unlearn was thinking that when I got to my perceived finish line, that it was actually the finish line and it wasn't just the next line, because I had been working in the screenplay for years and I got it to the point where I thought this is the best thing that anybody's ever written. And I showed it to Danny through working with him in his classes, and he's like, how are you on constructive criticism? But he was so right, because I had to get over that. I had to have the hubris to understand that it was okay to not have it perfect the first go around. Like, that brilliance didn't come when I expected it to. I had to push through that faux brilliance, that first line where I thought, oh, this is done, and got feedback and been open to getting feedback that it wasn't actually done, or it could be done. It was my work. I could choose whether it was done or not. But to take it from good to great, I had to be willing to push through that. And once I pushed through that barrier, that's when the world opened up for me, for creativity, because I got through that and I'm like, this is going in places that I never even thought it could go. And the project started leading me, which I thought was really something impressive.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that is such a gift, to get so deep into a project that you start to get to those points where it's kind of becoming something else, and you don't mind, and you're actually excited and you like it. Maybe it's becoming something else you don't like, so then you steer it in this direction or that direction. But you can't get there unless you have this informed about art. And you were informed because I was helping teach you and telling you every step of the way, no, that's fine, no, that's good, no, keep going, that's right, this is the process. I remember, Brandon, you would call me and you'd be like, is it the process that you do all this and then this happens? And I'd be like, yes. Welcome to the arts. The last part of the formula for me, and then I'm just going to get to one little exercise and then we'll go to questions and answers. The last part of this is self-acceptance. So you're informed about what creativity and productivity actually is, how it's done by human beings. The second part is you're playful. The third part is we must.
Good.
I'm surprised I haven't run into you before.
Hang on a sec.
All the time.
I
But
got
no,
him. Got him.
The last part is we must accept all parts of ourselves to be at peace. And we must be at peace, or some semblance of peace, to have sustained success or sustained productivity or sustained creative flow. From that place of peace, we can excel. And as we evolve our craft, we can accept and support that self that is not just creating and striving, but that's procrastinating, that's rushing, that's stalling and missing and forgetting and giving up. We love unconditionally all of that. We don't necessarily accept the thoughts that we sometimes hear about why that tell us to quit or not go to the project or procrastinate. We don't accept it, but we can neutralize it with acceptance and love. Tara Brach, meditation teacher, she talks about radical self-acceptance. You can't be at war with yourself and expect to function at your best. And it's no different with creativity and productivity. So to get into one more little way, Kyle, and this is kind of the last part of it, but this answers your question of how we do some of this, is one of the things that I do in my work is I teach people about their limiting beliefs, and limiting beliefs are really powerful. And I'm just going to assume most of you have heard this, but if you haven't, I'll just define it again. A limiting belief is anything, thought or state of mind that restricts you from doing something. It limits you. It doesn't help in your creative journey, for example, in creativity. but it's a belief that may or may not be true that inhibits you. Okay, so how many of you, just with hands showing, can like have experienced the limiting belief of like, I'm no good, I don't have time, keep them coming, I don't deserve to do it, I'm not okay, it's not good enough for me to make time, it's got to be better, it takes too much energy or time to even start, what's the point if it doesn't make money, I'm afraid to show my work, it's bad. I have a whole huge list of these. Okay, these are really powerful anti-motivators, and what's great about them is they're often barely true, and there's a really strong argument you can make in helping yourself to reframe these kind of thoughts that come up. So for example, let's do an exercise just real quick where all of you think of one or two phrases like that's a limiting belief, whether it's from you or society, like I'm not good enough, I'll never be good at it, or if it's not making me money, it's not worth doing, or I'm just average talent while there's other people who are brilliant talent. You know, take one of those. Does anyone, okay, I'm not a screenwriter, neither was Steven Spielberg until he was, I love it. So I'm gonna do one, this is how I might help someone if they say I'm not a good writer, I'm a bad writer, and I'd say, okay, actually respond to that honestly, authentically, but thoughtfully, why that may or may not be true. And here's a natural response. I'll say this to Brandon. Let's pretend you just said to me, you're not a good writer. I'd say, and you would say this to yourself, but I'm going to say it to you just to be dramatic. Brandon, that's not actually true. You may not be Hemingway yet, writing powerful novels, but you're as good as the next person at using basic language and expressing yourself and having emotions and having thoughts and having ideas. And frankly, the more you do of anything, the better you get at it. So if you spent as much time as Hemingway on writing, you would probably be at the same level or in the same league or certainly darn good, because you're a human being after all. You learned how to talk, didn't you? Oh, and also, first drafts of anyone's writing is really clunky. Many, many, many drafts of everyone's writing is really clunky. Clunky drafts is common. But you have the capacity to write beautifully, and it makes you feel good. So that's just an example of one limiting belief reframed. And when you do that, Kyle, when you run into these thoughts that keep you from being productive or creative or whatever, you can start to look at them and ask them if it's really true. I'll give you a great last example of one that happened to me recently. So this happens at every level. So I'm in love with this Aaron Neville, Linda Ronstadt song. I don't know much. I don't know much. And for my whole life, I thought Aaron Neville has a brilliance that I don't have as a singer. He can do something I just cannot do. And I never really looked at that thought or that limiting belief. I never really looked at it because it didn't matter until this last few weeks. I started recording that song because I just got excited and I was like, I'm going to do my version of that song. And I was like, you know, when I get to that part, I'll just sing it my way. I don't know much, and it'll just be like my version. It won't be so great. But after a while, I was like, screw that. How did he do that? He's just a human being. He has muscles in his throat, just like I do. I've been singing professionally for 20 years. I want to know how he did it. And I watched a video, and I saw all he did was go, I don't know. Well, up into his head voice for those vowels, and then came back. I don't know much. And suddenly I was able to sing it as well as anyone in that kind of league. I'm not going to say it was as well as him because his tone is different, things are different, but it was good. And it was something I did not believe I could do because I thought, oh, I just am not good enough, or there's some magic mystery to this. There wasn't. When I watched Aaron Neville, by the way, because the video I watched was of him live, he sang a lot of bad notes and a lot of weird little riffy thing. And I was like, oh, Aaron Neville, this guy who I thought was the most genius songwriter in the world, singer in the world, is just a human being. You know, so I'm uncovering these at every level. You're all uncovering these at every level you're at. And the point is to just bring it all back around. If you can approach your creativity and your productivity and AI and other tools with some semblance of a goal, or the understanding that a goal may evolve, and you might need to churn a little to get to a goal, but a goal may evolve. If you run into that goal, then you start asking yourself, do I have the craft? And then you work on that craft and you make sure it's an important part of your process. You got to get some craft in whatever you're trying to do in order to keep you going and excelling at it. in making work that you like. And then the last part is, how do you treat yourself when it comes to creativity? How do you approach productivity and creativity? Do you approach it informed and loving and playful, or do you beat yourself up? And I mean, we all know the answer to that. Those questions are kind of all over the place, the answers. But anyway, so that's my little, what I put together for today. But if we have any questions.
I think Leah's got her hand up.
My hand's still up from before, but I just wanted to say, I just dropped some of my limiting beliefs into Midjourney, and I'm pretty excited about what I'm generating, and I'll throw them over into the salon and you guys can take a look. But I would encourage you to maybe do some generative AI with your limiting beliefs. It's interesting what's popping up.
Oh, that's
Thank you for that. I mean, I have my hand up. I could just talk to you for the next hour about things that you just said. I think that'll be very boring. But one of the things that, a couple of things that just really spoke to me was flow and how good it feels to be in flow. And I think something that generative tools allow many people to do who maybe haven't had that experience is the enjoyable nature of being in flow and creating. And I think for people who are creative, and I mean, weeks that I'm busy, I'll spend 4 days in a row, 10 hours a day on set in flow, right? This is creative people, this is what we do. This is where we live. But I think for a lot of people, art's never been something that is a flow state for them. It's always been punitive or hard or whatever. They never took that from childhood and kept going with it. And one of the things I've noticed with generative AI tools is allows people who haven't really had that opportunity to spend 2, 3, 4 hours lost in this flow making work. It allows them to do that. It seems really neat.
Yes, that's right. And I was thinking about this when we were first talking before we started today, how AI is kind of like a new instrument. Like sometimes musicians will pick up a new guitar, and just because it's a different guitar,
new camera, because it's a new camera. Yep, absolutely.
And one of the things I love about AI, and also because I'm passionately dedicated to like helping people who don't think they're creative, like get in touch with, actually, you are. You really, really are. So I love that observation, and it's cool because that's what I was thinking too with AI. Like I started playing with things. I was, oh, just for play and just for flow. What a great tool. And then you can take it onto the goal section, of course.
Absolutely. And then also in that, like in the acceptance, which is your talk tonight was so much about being human. And I love it when we have talks about being human in the face of AI, right? Because this is what being a creative person is all about. And I think that, you said something that I dropped in the chat that like when we're generating with AI and in art in general, it happens with photographers all the time, where you have this idea in your head and you get so caught up in making this idea that's in your head. It's in my head. I have to get it right. I have to get exactly what I see in my head out, right? I have to make the generative AI tool do exactly what's in my head and make it exactly right. And that's okay. But I think so many opportunities are lost in that journey of getting to that thing that we're working towards. There's all of these moments that happen where the light's a little off, or it was a little bright, or the expression wasn't quite right. Or in generative AI, all kinds of weird things start happening, like colors and shapes and things start coming in. And I think when we pay attention to the process and we look for those moments, we can start taking our work in new directions and push past things we never even thought possible.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing I want to say to that is, one of the things that's going on, there's a lot of folds in this blanket that we're talking about. One of the things that's sometimes going on with people in that moment is their self-esteem is being impacted by like my self-esteem when it comes to singing. I think I'm the greatest in the world. And therefore I take the stupidest chances. And when I hear something I did without meaning to, I'm very open to, is that good or not? But when I first started out, or when I first started out being a screenwriter, if someone challenged anything, I did not have the self-esteem or the confidence to say, I'm open to seeing that might be something. So it's like we're working on like 5 different dimensions to get more evolved. But that happened, that kind of dips into a few of the dimensions. But it's a really important point. Great creative artistry is open to anything, and they have the craft to identify and grab what's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Brandon.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to share, and thank you, Danny, for coming and talking to us. It's always a pleasure when I get to hear you speak. But one of the things that really rang through to me in this process of taking my film from good to better, we're getting to great, but from good to better, is the fact that when I got stuck ChatGPT and AI in general doesn't get stuck. It is the friend that will help you around, over, underneath, or through the barrier if you let it pull you. So there were literally nights where I'd be like, this character would not do that. That's wrong for this character. And it would, in true to form, be like, you're absolutely right. This character would never do that. Let's take it a different approach. And we'd keep iterating and iterating and iterating until something struck. And in those moments where, like, you know what, maybe this is a stupid idea. Maybe I should just go back to, software analytics and not worry about this whole, like, maybe this is just a dream that I had that was, and they'd be like, no, what are you talking about? You've taken it this far. So it became my cheerleader in those moments that I hit that trough of disillusionment where I'm like, I'm not good enough. It really led forward with, yeah, no, you are good enough. Look at all the stuff we've accomplished so far. Let's not stop now. And that was just enough motivation to get me through to that next break point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the greatest film writer in the world. I'm like, well,
yeah, and that's interesting, Brandon, because that speaks to what Heather, I think it was Heather at the beginning, was saying, like, if it's too nice to me, I'm a little worried about that. And I would take the other side of that argument. I think the world and everyone we know they'll supply plenty of the you suck, having that constructive, you're great, especially because it's not untrue. That's the other thing. It's not like it's lying to you. Your idea, until it's finished, it's potentially the greatest thing in the world. And even when it's finished, it's still potentially the greatest thing in the world until it is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah. Can you, Danny, you didn't really mention it. You said you're a working screenwriter, and if you don't know what that means, I've written 7 screenplays and never had one produced. Danny, on the other hand, has had films produced. Can you talk about? I was fascinated with Brandon's thing about, I thought when I finished it I would be done, and I realized, like, that was just the beginning. Finishing a screenplay, getting it to a producible place is one thing, but then having a film made involves so many other people, so much other process. Can you walk through, like, pick one of your experiences of what was your experience getting to the point that the screenplay was, it was soup, right? Is it soup yet? And then what was that experience like when it was no longer purely in your hands? And, like, what was that relationship? Or, what was the creative process there? Or was it, sort of, I'm done and I'm out? Like, that's fascinating to me. That
yeah, process. I'll answer the second part real quick, and then I'll go to the first part. It was kind of like having a really powerful AI who was actually in charge of me.
Oh, interesting.
But so I'll give you an example of The Marksman, the Liam Neeson movie that I'm most proud of. It's the biggest thing I've done. And it started off as a bad idea. My writing partner called me up and he was like, dude, I got an idea for our next script. Let's write a movie about these racist assholes who live on the border, and they use binoculars to try to catch illegal immigrants. And I was like, ugh, what? That's disgusting. And then I walked around, and about an hour later I sat down. I was like, actually, what if this was a broken human being who was broken because of reasons we can identify with? And he's not a real racist. He's just kind of a shitbag for the moment. And what if through helping someone, he had catharsis and grew and became the angel? And that happened, within a few hours, and then a day, the next day. And pretty soon I was like, oh, why don't I maybe make this a road trip? Okay, a man saves a little immigrant boy. He starts to melt and become a human being again. And the whole time they're getting chased by bad guys. Okay, well, I have enough craft to understand that that's a pretty good template for a story. And just as an artist and a person with emotions, I'm getting engaged and moved by this story. Let's do it. So then we spent about 3 years writing that script, and it went through many different drafts. There were some scenes that were written right away that stayed in the movie till the end, but most did not. And I'd say over those 5 years, we probably wrote 100 drafts. And there was some of it was organic, coming from us, like, oh, this isn't working. Oh, let's do a workshop. Let's read this to public. Oh, that's not working. Oh, I'm getting it better at writing than I was 2 years ago because I've watched 10 Coen Brothers films. I think in that moment it's not ringing as true as it could. Let's change that. But sometimes there was other influences, like our manager, our producer. At one point, my manager said, "Hey, there's too many Hispanic cartel villains in TV right now." It was when Breaking Bad was really big. He's like, "Let's just change the villain completely." So I was like, "Okay, I'm open to anything." And there was a little part of me that was like, screw that. But most of me said, I'm open to anything, let's try it. And we created this great character who was an ICE agent. I'll talk about how appropriate that is now, who was totally corrupt. And then when they sold the script, they actually gave the wrong draft to the studio. So the studio loved the original draft without a different villain. So we had to like take the bad and pretend none of it even happened. And it was just a freaking great challenge. And then for me, the beauty of that project, and this doesn't always happen when you're working in advertising or film, when you're working collaborative thing where the pressures and the amount of money going back and forth produces a lot of pressure. This doesn't always happen, but in my case, I loved every page of that script by the time I turned it in. And then I happened to hook up with a director who loved every page of that script that I turned in. And the changes he made to it at some point, because we couldn't get Robert De Niro or all these actors of that age group, none of them would commit because the guy was too much of a prick at the beginning of the movie. They were like, that is off-brand. Our fans will not believe this movie. So Rob, the director, one day he just changed the beginning, and then I found out, and I was like, let me read it. I was like, that's great. That part is not great, but the rest is great. And I love that. And the whole thing was an absolute joy. And then when it got to that level where it's like being produced on a high, in like a big way with millions of dollars and stuff, you confront every fear you've ever had. And some of it comes at you directly, like, oh my God, my work is getting messed with. Wait, am I any good? Like some of it's, you can some of that stuff directly. Some of it, just out of nowhere, you're suddenly like, oh no, oh my God, what's about to happen to my life? And you have no control. And it's another part, like Brandon's learning process, it's another part of the artistic process where having a movie reviewed by thousands of critics, some of whom were nice, some of whom were not nice, at first you think that's a bad experience. It's a wonderful experience because you find the truth in everything. So it's like a lot of it was really daunting. And thank God I got to do it when I did, because now I'm feeling the ball is rolling down the hill way more than me going up. The ball is just rolling. I can't stop this now.
Beautiful. What other questions? Who's got thoughts, questions for Danny? Raise your hand.
So I'll say one other thing, because I wanted to make sure if anyone's more interested in this kind of stuff, this is an area of research I'm really big in right now. If you're struggling with motivation or procrastination, this is also part of it. We don't really talk about that. That's an important part of this process because it's slightly separate and slightly isn't separate. But if you'd like to know more about that and more about creativity and productivity, you can reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. Anyone can reach out to me. You can learn more about what I'm doing. But I will say, my work in academia started with learning how to be a great craftsman, how to be a great writer, and it turned into how to be a happy person. And the byproduct of being a happy person is I'm a better writer, and so are my students. So it's like it's all coming back around. Brandon, yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I think and it kind of comes full circle to the something Leah said earlier about VO3 and how people are doing these sizzle reel, like, oh, look what I could do. I made a 4-second clip that looks really, the uncanny valley is not there anymore. But what's missing in a lot of these things, and even some of the stuff that I'm finding myself playing with in generative AI, is it's missing that story arc. And you have a really good way of kind of framing that, of like what the core elements of a story, at its root, so that you can take that and apply that to the generative AI projects, so they don't just become these flash in the pan type ideas.
Well, right, that's right. And when I teach this stuff, I start with the creativity and the productivity, but ultimately I do get to a point where it's like, okay, you have to learn the craft. You have to understand how the top 100 movies that you love were made and why and what choices were made. You have to become a good writer to get to the next level and use these tools. Like I could make a movie right now, I think, with AI that would be half decent because I learned how to tell stories before I had anyone helping me with anything.
Right. Yeah. Barbara
Cram.
Hey, thank you. I'm sorry, Danny, I lost some audio earlier. Did you talk at all to music rights and the role of AI and, issues surrounding concerns over licensing?
I didn't. And I know a little bit about it, but I probably know as much as the rest of us here. Yeah, I mean, are you talking about like if you incorporate other music into your work, where do your rights start and theirs stop, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And are you finding that, say, producers don't want to go and touch AI stuff if they're concerned about the ownership and the licensing? What's
No,
going on?
No, I think all of that gets sorted out. That you have to sort that stuff out anyway. Ideas, certain ideas, the complexity of a certain idea might be copyrightable. That's the same with music or story. But at some point, an idea is not copyrightable. If I'm going to say to you, I want to write a song about riding the train to Denver, and then you write a song about riding the train to Denver, you can't. There's no problem there. There's not a copywritten thing there. But if you steal the melody or not steal, if you use the melody and you use the same words and it's the same darn song or mostly the same darn song, well, legally we're still set up to pay people for their work, for what's copywritten. So I haven't run into that as a problem. It's just you have to be aware that if you're using copywritten material, there's a limit to what you can do with it without paying the other people.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have an idea I'd like you to explore. You're a multi-passionate, as we say, right? You've got, a multi-capable. So you've experienced, it sounds like you regularly experience creative expression in multiple modes, right? Here's a song, here's a story, here's teaching, right? Which is a creative expression. One of the things I think AI is going to enable us all to do is, choose, any discipline and be able to, creatively express within it. Can you talk about that? Do you find it a different process depending on the kind of output it is? Is writing and producing a song a fundamentally different thing than writing and producing a screenplay? Is there different joy in it? Like, can you just talk about your relationship to the output?
Yeah, they're very, very, very different meals and flavors. So ultimately, you're digesting stuff that's good for you or satiates you, but it's very different to write the lyrics to a song than it is to score cello quartet. It's just different. That once you get past the initial, problems you're solving, then it starts to be the same. When you get into flow, your brain is just making connections and making decisions, and everything's kind of falling away, and you're fine. That can happen with me with a cello concerto or cello quartet. Like, as soon as I play the first note, I start hearing the other things, and next thing I know, I'm just gone. But I can struggle to write a song for a month.
Right.
And so at some point, everything starts flowing into flow. But that's why I do 20 different things, because teaching is a different form of getting into flow, and painting and writing, music. It's all related. But when one of them gets hard for me, because I don't want to give up on flow, I go to something else and I kind of refresh my brain and I get energy back. And that allows me, and people are always like, don't do too much, don't spread yourself too thin. And while that's true, that's actually not true. It's just, you just got to manage your energy.
Yeah. Do you find yourself going to comfort modes? Like, if you have real confidence in singing and songwriting, if you're doing something where you're not as comfortable and you feel a little unsure there, do you go to sort of comfort creative output, or is it not that intense?
No. And the reason why I don't do that is because I have come to value, because I've been a professional creative like since I was in high school. All I've ever made money at is creative stuff. So I've had to work at it. And when I'm not working at it, I'm doing it as a hobby. I've come to appreciate the value of being scared out of your mind. And the more I do that, so like I'm doing a comedy show Saturday. I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm doing a comedy set. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can get familiar with the physiological stuff that happens to me when I'm at the beginning of a craft, because I don't get nervous the way I do on comedy stage when I'm writing music. Right. But there's a lot of value in it. So I don't avoid it anymore. And I can't avoid it really, because every semester I teach, I'm in a classroom with 30 people staring at me and they're like, go for 3 hours, go. It's terrifying. So I've come to realize just how valuable that is, because once that stuff falls away, a lot of your ego falls away with it. And then kind of ripe for ideas and grabbing stuff. When the nervousness is all gone, it's amazing how creative you can be, because just it takes like a water that washes stuff away. It just takes all the crap away. You're just like, ooh, I love that rhyme.
That's awesome. It's so refreshing. Joy.
So
I'm enjoying this so much, but I have to write, adapt a children's book into a film, and I've plugged it into ChatGPT and Claude. And I'm just wondering if you have any pointers on how I should discern what I grab from the book for the film, because it's probably going to have to be under 10 minutes. And I feel like I don't trust the LLMs to make the right choices. And I don't trust myself because I don't write scripts. I'm brand new to making films. Do you have
She's
any
really good at
pointers?
it, by the way, Danny. You should. She's really good at it. You should see Joy's work.
I want to see it.
The first piece I saw of hers, I'm like, oh, she's got a film background. She's like, no, sleep analysis, I think, right?
The first thing I would say to you is this assumption. Did you hear the limiting belief in that? I'm not a screenwriter. You know who else isn't a screenwriter? Me when I'm in the shower. Like there is no I'm a screenwriter. Like you may not have a lot of experience with screenwriting, but you're a human being who has the productivity and the creativity with you, and you can learn the craft. So I would say do as much of it on your own as you can, and then use the tools, and then use your judgment to say, oh, I like that or I don't like that, but it still should come from you. I would challenge you to write it without, if it's a 10-minute film, I would say write it without AI. Just do your best, and when you're really stuck, get a description of the deer with the sweat, and then have someone go, there's no sweat on deer. You've used AI in a way where you're driving, and I think that's a really important way to approach it.
That's a good point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have if there are any other questions, I have a quick question about, you're so confident in something I think is really important as a creative person and sort of your own path and what works. I'm curious about, you said you've been doing creative work since high school. What was like an experience you had over the course of your career that was like this aha moment where you realized the way your process or how you had done something was now going to shift because of this realization you had as you were working as a creative person?
I'm not sure will you ask me that again? I don't totally understand the question.
So there's a way you were creating and making work when you were in high school, and then as you became a young adult. And at some point in your career, things have happened, failures, successes, conversations with people that have probably made you think, oh, I was thinking about it this way, but I'm going to shift. And now I think about this way, and this is going to move me in a new direction. What are moments, like a specific moment or a story around that?
Yeah, this is great. That I refer to that as, that's just blind spots being removed. When we start out, we have a ton of blind spots. We just don't have the bandwidth to see everything. Like now I can picture a 2-hour movie on a 90 to 120 page draft. I can see it all. I don't miss much. But there was a time when I missed something. So a great example of this is with The Marksman. There was this beautiful scene that I adored where the mean man who helps the illegal immigrant boy try to get to safety, they encounter a murder, and it's terrifying, and the boy wets his pants. And I said to Rob, the director wanted to take that scene out, and I said, Rob, you absolutely can't. He has to absolutely wet his pants. And Rob was like, Danny, I don't think it's going to work. And then he explained why. And from where I was sitting, the most important thing was how powerful it would be for the audience to see this man help this boy with something that's fucking embarrassing and terrifying and all this stuff. And Rob was like, all of that's true. The audience won't see any of that. What they'll see is the water tube we have in his pants making the pants wet, and the laugh. And the more I thought about it, I was like, wow, I never really considered, because I never made a big studio movie. I never really considered that it may shift once you put it in front of an audience. And that was great. And even though it's a silly little example, it changed a lot about the way I write, because now I always think like, is that brilliant in my head, but wouldn't play right on the screen? I think it is, actually. So that's a good example.
Really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think that there's these really interesting moments as creative people where that happens, where we sort of go along with a lot of confidence around we're doing things the way we do them. And then I love how you said that we just removed blind spots, that the way we're seeing now shifts and change.
Yeah, and it's really important to frame it that way, because if you frame it as I was stupid and now I'm smarter, well, that just feeds you. But if
Right.
I could only see so much. I was always actually pretty darn, brilliant. I just could only see as far as I could see. And I think that's an honest answer. I think that's more truthful. I think everyone is brilliant. They just don't have the bandwidth to consider all the inputs. And then when they do, they start making the same choices as Van Gogh would make.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. And we've talked a lot tonight about something I think a lot about is brilliant, not brilliant, good or bad. There's sort of like a judgment around success, failure, all of these words. And I'd be curious about your relationship with that duality, good, bad, failure, success, failure, all those, all that yin and yang that I think all creators sort of wrestle with.
Yeah, I aspire to live in a world where those words do not exist, or if they do exist, they have absolutely no ability to cling to anything. They're real. It's really nonsense.
Yeah.
If you objectively try to evaluate work, you could take the most brilliant, objectively, everyone thinks this is the most brilliant piece of art because they're all artists and everything, and you could take a really mediocre one, and you can see they're not that different. Right. So the gap between greatness and okay is way smaller than we think. Yeah. And good, like, what is good? Good is what you perceive as being at the top of your ability in a way that you're perceiving it in a way that's also engaging and entertaining and interesting to you. If it made you happy, it's good. If you want to sell it to 1 million people all over the world in movie theaters, you may have to check in a little with your craft and learn, okay, what does good mean on that level? Oh, but it doesn't mean you weren't good. It just means you weren't considering how the PP would look coming out of the thing. Right. So it's blind spots. It's not good or bad. Everyone has, I mean, sure, talent is part of it, but it's not as big of a part as everyone thinks. I mean, Roger Federer talks about this all the time. When Roger Federer hits a ball into the net, he doesn't think twice about it. He does not think twice about it. When I hit the ball in the net, I'm like, I suck. I'm quitting tennis. You know? Yeah. So the compassionate approach to all this is huge. It's way more powerful than we realize what's going on, like behind the scenes saying, you suck, don't do that. Oh, that's no good. Oh, you'll never be good. Really? I've had work where I was convinced for years it wasn't good. And then one day I got my perception of what good and bad kind of got broader. And I was like, that was actually really damn good. I was just terrified to share it with anyone because I was so insecure.
Right.
So I don't know that there is really good or bad. I don't know.
That's an interesting perspective. I think making any creative work is a lot more interesting if you don't worry about it being good or bad. Like there's a kind of joy that comes from just making for the sake of making, right? Versus having to, is this good? Is this bad? I think it's a lot about, like, I think about it as solving a problem. Am I solving the problem that needs to be solved right now? Is this for a client? Especially I do a lot of work for clients. Like, am I solving this problem that we need to solve? And that kind of helps drive it. Because I think good or bad gets really tricky, right?
Yeah, it does. And those are two kind of different places you're operating from. So if you're operating from creativity as a chance to get into flow and use your brain and feel good, which is valuable, very valuable, then there is no place for judgment. It doesn't matter if it literally looks like a horseshit. It does not matter. You are here as a human being, opening up yourself to flow states, and that's valuable. But if you're working for a client and they objectively are like, my daughter, the shadows are terrible in this, I need to see her eyes, and you're like, oh, okay. You know, the flow might not be as important in that moment as getting it right as determined by your level of craft.
Yeah. Can you circle back to the talent question? Because I always find this one fascinating. And I would think that, walking in every semester to a room full of new students, there are probably one or two that you're like, well, damn, they've got talent up here. And then you've got, just the hard workers, and you have everything in between. What's your relationship between talent and hard work, right?
Yeah.
And whether it's for you personally, but like just in what you see in others.
So I'll try to answer it. There's a few little questions in there, but I'll try to answer it in a way that kind of covers all of it. Talent, it's so not important. It's so not important. It just isn't. At the highest levels, sure. No, it just so okay for my students, for example. No one comes in and appears more talented than anyone else ever. Some people have some capacities, like maybe they're intellectually, they can problem solve quicker, or they're more used to being creative, so they're not afraid to share their work. But it's usually just who is just allowing themselves the freedom to share or open up or be open to things, and then who is shut down. So that's part of it with the students. The other thing is the hard work. First of all, it doesn't have to be hard, but it is hugely important, because great work is not done by anyone right away. Like Sylvester Stallone says he made Rocky in 3 days. That's just not true. I know it's not true.
Yeah.
You know, he wrote the first draft in 3 days, and then for years they made it better. The hard work is actually what creates anything of value. And so you don't have to, like unless you are really, like, you had a bullet in your head and your brain doesn't work, most people have the capacity to do anything. I can't dunk a basketball, but I can jump pretty high if I work at it. It's the same thing. So talent, none of my talented students who like appear talented, who are the crazy creatives, sometimes that's a real problem because they don't know how to grit it out and work towards it.
It's like being super pretty. You know, you lean on being pretty, right? Like me. Like this is just genetics.
You had it so easy, Kyle, because of your looks.
Exactly. Everything's just handed to me.
Does anyone else have other questions? I think Danny has so much wisdom to share. We've got a little extra time.
Liz.
Less a question and more just a reflection. I loved what you were saying about the need for radical self-acceptance, for accepting the wholeness, the bad and the good, and just all of it, because it just, I'm struck that you have to be able to sit in that space of just sucking so bad, and that's sort of what it strikes me, that's what that's about, and sitting in that space of just not knowing where it's coming together. I'd love to hear more about that.
That's exactly what that is. It's not that it sucks, you don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
I do not see sucks ever.
Yeah.
If I hear a note that's played out of tune, I don't see sucks. I go, oh no, maybe not. You know, but I never say sucks anymore, because I've kind of seen enough that, like, it's like I said in the Paint Mona Lisa, it's the first thing, and that thing leads to the next. And if it's the worst idea in the world, like my friend saying, hey, let's take a racist jerk and let's make him the protagonist of the movie, I recognize, oh, that might be a great place to launch into another idea that might get me there. So there's just, the more you do it, the more you realize there literally are no bad ideas.
Yeah.
I really like that visual of it. You're just not, it's like you're not there yet. You're on this journey and you're going along and you're still on the road trip. You just haven't gotten to the destination yet, or you're still walking on the path. There's all kinds of bumps, and you're not hitting quite the right spot, and maybe you're uncomfortable, but this isn't the ending. You're not there yet. And you're just
with the tennis analogy, like, imagine if you took a step onto the court and you were like, oh, I didn't step well onto the court, I can't play this tournament.
That's right.
That's literally what we're doing as creators.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Liz.
Oh, I was just going to say, it strikes me that that's related to the whole notion of attachment and going into a project and thinking you know exactly what it's going to be. And you release that and you just take it all. Even the parts that you don't think you like, they may be very viable.
Well, yes and no. This is tricky. This is where it gets tricky, because the more craft you have, the more you'll be able to discern what you like and why, and what you don't like and why. Like when I do improv, if someone makes a bad move that I don't like, I'm human. I will say to myself, you know, that was not the best move. And when someone makes a great move in improv, I'm like, oh, I love this human being, you know, because I have some level of craft where I can discern what works or works better or works even better. So I don't think it's okay to be open to every single thing unless you're also thinking critically about what you want. Because otherwise you'll just take everything and say, oh, it's all good. But you gotta make choices. That's the other big thing in art and creating. You have to make choices. Making those choices easier and easier for yourself, or recognizing that you can make a choice and go back and make another choice is what frees you.
Brandon.
One thing that we talk about, and maybe you could just light it here, is how to overcome the blank slate or the blank canvas, the empty Word doc, and how to just start. You know, we talk about that, just starting, that first stroke being so important. But if you have those self-limiting beliefs, if you think, oh well, I'm not a musician, so I couldn't, like, I'm looking at a pseudo screen and I'm like, I don't even know how to prompt an idea of a song. I want to, but I don't know. And then of course, my 4-year-old son comes over and goes, just say this. And then he spits out an amazing song. But so how do you get past that initial, like, blank cursor, blank slate?
Be like the 4-year-old. Recognize it for what it is. It's just a thing that you go like this to, and it does that. I mean, I'm working on a song right now. I am struggling with these lyrics so much, and I'm certain it will become a great song whenever the heck it does. And I could care less. There's just something about children, and when we first start, we're just so curious about it all. And then when we're adults, we attach so much meaning to it. Like you said, I'm bad, or I don't know how to do this. If you look, and this is getting a little into therapy, but if you look even deeper into that, you start to say, okay, what's going on with me that I'm giving myself such a hard time when, you know, Prince could pick up, if he were still alive, he could pick up this AI and be as confused as I am.
Yeah. Let me ask you one maybe final thing. I want you to go into speculation world for a minute.
Okay.
Let's assume that these video tools get as good as they get, and let's assume that the song tools get as good as they get, and how you express yourself fundamentally alters. And while you may use your craft, it now becomes a choice, right? Because everyone can tap into some version of craft that's kind of instant. And so I'm just curious, either from past experience as technologies have evolved, or just sort of imagining in the future, if exercising that craft becomes a choice, you know, will you still do it? Will you hit the easy button? How might you change if the tools allow you to do kind of infinite self-expression?
Yeah, I don't totally agree with the premise of the question, because I would argue that though from where we're sitting and not looking, you know, that far back, just being overwhelmed by everything that's happening in the moment that's so exceptional, we forget tools evolved. Like a great example of this, when iPhones came out, everyone was suddenly able to make feature films with their iPhone.
Right.
But, you know, but only the ones who had some storytelling craft and some cinematography craft were able to do it and keep doing it, both to create something that was worthy to them, that was any good, that was worth working on for 3 years. So I kind of believe that the people who, and that's why I believe it's so important to tap into your creativity and productivity and to figure out kind of what you want and don't look back. Because the people who are going to be successful, and I'm defining success as both productive and happy, they're going to be the ones that are doing it. And whatever tools they're given, they're going to keep doing it. I wouldn't want to just make some movie that didn't move my heart just because I have the ability to do it with AI.
Right.
So I don't think it's obviously a lot shifts, but the big important things that help people to become successful, creative human beings, it's all the same.
Yeah. That's kind of where I circled back to, where it's like, it is all about the idea. What do you want to do in the world? How do you want to impact people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Danny, this has been absolutely wonderful, very inspiring. Thank you.
So cool.
Really.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
Where can we find you?
Yeah, why don't you give us? Yeah, hawk your course.
Okay.
And what's going on?
Yeah, so I'll do this again. I'll put my email in here one more time. So my course is called The Creative's Edge, and it's a coaching program, and it's all levels, all different kind of variations on creativity and certain specific skills. It's just arts education and craftsman education, depending on what your craft is. You can just email me and I'll talk to you about it, and I'll send you more information about it. It's called The Creative's Edge, and it's a little bit all over the place. I've become one of those guys who goes on YouTube videos and goes like, "Hey, are you hating your day job? Would you like to be a little more creative day to day, but you think you're not creative? Well, I've got something to tell you." You know, so and so that's what I'm using to get my kind of message out and my teaching out to non-college age academic people, right? So please look me up at the Creative's Edge, or just email me and say, or email Brandon, because Brandon is my agent. And it's helped me promote myself better than I could. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. And within my course, there's tons of information, both about how to become a more productive version of yourself, but also how to get really experienced if you want to write a feature film screenplay, like how to really do it, where the craft come in. And I think it's really a combination of both. And I try to, help people feel better about themselves while also getting good at stuff.
Amazing. Danny, it was a pleasure to have you here tonight. Thank you for all your wisdom and everything you shared. Let's keep the conversation going. You're welcome. Come join us in the salon anytime.
I will come join another one of these. This was a blast.
Awesome.
Great. Cheers, everybody. And if you haven't done it, go sign up for the mastermind. All right.
Hey, have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Danny.